Welcome back to the green yard. It is a beautiful beginning of April day here in Phoenix, Arizona. Beautiful spring afternoon. We're here in the front yard of the green yard. I know we don't go through much in the front yard. Most of the things that I've planted here I did a long time ago, so they're a little bit more mature. We did a really popular video on growing a Pakistan mulberry here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'll include a link to that one. Our Pakistan mulberry is right over here over my right shoulder. It did not fruit again this year. I've learned from the nursery that it could have been a tissue culture mulberry tree, which apparently those tissue culture mulberry trees take many more years to start bearing fruit as opposed to something that is grafted or grow in a different way. So from a tissue culture, it can take 5 to 7 years to actually start producing that fruit. So I may have to wait a little bit longer. I also, if you remember, I did take that tree out of the food forest side of the green yard and move it onto this side of the fence. That may have done a little damage, maybe traumatized it, so it's going to put off fruit another year. But it is doing really, really well and growing a lot this year, which I'm super excited about. We also have one of our 2 beautiful rainbow eucalyptus behind the camera there. Rainbow eucalyptus are doing really well this year. They're actually starting to change color a little bit, starting to see a little bit of green and a little bit of purple in there, so that's really cool as well. But we're here today to talk about the tree behind me, this monster tree that I'm standing underneath. A little bit of a controversial tree, or it can be. This is a Royal Empress tree or a Paulownia tree. One of the fastest growing trees in the world. It can grow 20 feet in 1 year, which I have witnessed because when I planted this tree, it was about a foot tall, actually a little bit less, 8 inches tall, and it is now this monster tree in less than 2 years. We actually have one on the other side of the front yard, and that one's even taller than this one. That one actually is probably approaching like that 25 foot mark, which is really impressive. Now, the reason I say that these trees are controversial is because they can be invasive, especially back on the East Coast, but there are some cultivars that are sterile. And I think this might be one of the cultivars that is sterile because it did it flowered last year. So it does produce these really pretty flowers, which I took some video on already. And that flower then produces a fruit. This tree, and same with our other one, has not produced any fruit this year. So I have a feeling that it might be more that sterile variety. But let's go ahead and let's talk about growing this beautiful shade tree here in Phoenix, Arizona. Here we go. So we're actually on the other side of the green yard now with our really, really big Royal Empress tree. You can see the trunk here is just gigantic. Like I said, less than 2 years in the ground, and it already has this giant trunk here. It is also incredibly tall. We're talking over 20 feet already. It is a very, very beautiful big shade tree. And the reason why we're looking at this one and not the other one is because this one actually has some flowers that are close enough to the camera that we can kind of look at them, look at those buds. So this is what those flowers look like prior to actually blooming. And then they do produce this really pretty white purplish flower. They also call it the foxglove tree because it does look a little bit like a foxglove flower as well. All right, so in terms of growing a Royal Empress tree here in Phoenix. Not a whole lot that goes into it now. I can tell you what I've done so far. Other people have different experiences. This is our other tree. Once again, just a monstrous trunk on this thing for not even being 2 years old yet. I did mulch these trees when they were young. I actually haven't applied any new mulch anytime, in the recent past. They actually are just growing in grass. They seem to be fine with that, not really any issues, but I am adding a little bit of that sulfur as well as some granular fertilizer in here. I do also give them fish emulsion as well, just like my other trees, and that seems to have helped with that growth. One thing that you have to keep in mind if you do decide to grow these Royal Empress, their leaves are amazing, but it does drop those leaves significantly. They're actually really fuzzy and soft, which is something I love. They get to be about 4 times the size of this leaf right now. They get really big and they grow very, very quickly. So this is a perfect spot because I wanted a bunch of shade for our house. So it works out really well for me, but you would have to kind of find a spot that would work for you, that would allow you to have this big of a tree. So pretty easy tree to grow here in Phoenix, Arizona. They do lose their leaves, like I mentioned, in the winter, so they are deciduous. That leaf drop is significant since the leaves are so big. They get really large leaves, soft leaves on here, so that leaf drop can be significant, especially as your tree gets older and older. I just use it for mulch, so it ends up working really well for me. You also need to properly water these trees as well, because they can have somewhat invasive roots, just like any tree that's improperly watered. If you don't do that deep soaking, if you don't water it correctly, those roots can search along the surface to find that water. Definitely not something that you want. So luckily for us, we get our flood irrigation, so all of the roots are definitely down deep in the soil, holding this beautiful tree together, and we get this great shady environment from this tree that otherwise wouldn't be here. And we got it really, really quickly too. So if you're looking for kind of a microclimate establishing tree and you have the space to do it, I would definitely recommend planting a Royal Empress to kind of start with that microclimate. If you don't want to wait 20 years or 15 years for a mulberry tree to grow up, like I said, this is, well, at least our other one, this one's close to being 20 feet in just 2 years, which is pretty incredible and could really help with that shade in the afternoon to help establish that microclimate. And if you get a variety that's sterile, which I believe this one is, then you don't have to worry about those seeds spreading or any sort of invasive qualities that this tree can have. So I'd recommend looking into a Royal Empress tree. I know it's a little controversial. They grow very quickly, but it is a really beautiful tree. It definitely adds a statement to the landscape. And if you want to use it to help establish that shade for some of your other fruiting trees, it does a great job and it grows really, really quickly. So as always, live green, plant lots, and of course have fun.